Minister, I think despite the fact that we've lost numbers of habitats and species, and given that there's been a huge reduction in the bee population in the country to the tune of about 40%, which is quite scary when you realise the role that the bee play in the food chain and the reproductive life of this island. And there's a red listing of at least 6 or 7 native species of birds. In other words, they're in danger of extinction. But despite that, as has been said by others, one gets a huge amount of pleasure in this country from walking the hills and the laneways, cycling pathways and using all the attractions that this country has to offer. But what this bill is about to do will take the cutting period, which is now closed, from April to August in order to protect the very vegetation and wildlife that I've spoken about during those months of growth and reproduction, and extend it by another month at either end. I cannot understand the thinking behind that, and I wish you would come back and explain it. I hope you do accept this amendment, because I think it's hugely important. Because during these periods, wildlife is beginning to nest and reproduce and is at its best. And the insect species that inhabit all our hedgerows and uplands and bogs, etc., have a knock-on effect if they're deprived of their existence into the level of other insects and going up the food chain, birds and other animals and mammals that can survive. So why would we deprive them of an opportunity of existing with a knock-on effect that affects everybody else? 28% of Ireland's breeding birds are currently in decline, and another 31% of habitats are in decline. Those who are in decline include the barn owl, the yellowhammer, the curlew, the golden plover, the red-breasted goose, the meadow pipit. They all sound beautiful, and they are beautiful, and they are quite unique to this country. And this sort of action that is in this bill, Minister, would entirely endanger them. The action of the Department of Arts, Heritage and Gaeltacht in connection with wildlife and habitats wouldn't be countenanced anywhere else in Europe. I don't believe it would be. And if you can tell me that this is in line with any kind of EU directives, I'd like to hear it, because many Europeans who come to this country are already shocked at the kind of lax and light touch regulation that exists over the experience of our wildlife and maintaining it. Secondly, allowing land users to define road safety is crazy. I mean, that, with all due respects to farmers and land users, this is kind of a level of democracy that you don't allow anyone else. You don't allow public sector workers have a say in how their jobs function. You wouldn't allow Neighbourhood Watch have a say in how the police police the communities, but you give ownership of the Road Safety Authority practically to land users. And I think this is completely wrong. And as I say, preface it with the respect that is deserved to the land users and the farmers in the areas that they occupy. But they should not be allowed to define road safety. That should be left up to the Road Safety Authority. And where we make the effort, there is a huge buy-in from farmers and communities into the idea of sustainability, the sustainability of farming and the sustainability of local communities and habitat and animals and birds within that. And the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine have been focused very much on the Burren and carrying out exercises of sustainability in County Clare because of its special nature of the area. And having been there on a week's walking recently, I think it is working beautifully. It is actually working very, very well, and it is preserving the flowers, the bees, the birds, the nature that makes up the wealth of that area, as well as helping the farmers to know how and when to farm in a correct way to help it survive. So, Minister, whether it's the uplands or the lowlands or the burren or the hedgerows or whatever it may be, we should be very, very careful about passing this aspect of the bill. We want to, if we do, we're given a carte blanche to attacking species when they're at their best, when they're young and when they're reproducing and when they need to inhabit the hedgerows and the bogs, etc. And we are also allowing people take over the role of the Road Safety Authority, and in the course of so doing, endanger the existence of many of our most beautiful species of birds. So we'll be looking for the removal of this section.
Yeah, I have to say it's fairly bizarre that the government would propose